Tonight, the saga over an ousted Liberal candidate.
The Liberals will shun him in Parliament.
Do you think he fairly won the riding?
No.
Anger is mounting over Kevin Vong's victory in the riding of Spadina-Fort York after he was ousted from the Liberal Party. Plus,
an adult male had succumbed to his injuries and was pronounced deceased on scene.
Police are searching for multiple suspects after a shooting in Brampton that left one person dead and another injured. We'll have the latest from the scene. And
it's kind of what they got to do to make people get the vaccine.
Reaction from customers and concerns from some businesses as Ontario's vaccine passport system comes into effect. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Anger and some mixed reaction tonight in the riding of Spadina-Fort York following the victory of candidate Kevin Vong. Vong was a Liberal candidate, but the party ousted him just days before the federal election after learning of sexual assault allegations against him. Vong says he will now sit as an independent, but as our Jessica Ng reports, some want him to step down.
It's definitely scary that that kind of thing didn't get caught.
Jocelyn Raventa lives in the riding of Spadina-Fort York. She says she feels uneasy knowing the candidate who will represent her and her neighbors in Parliament didn't fully disclose sexual assault allegations against him before deciding to run. Tonight, Kevin Vong's victory was confirmed, and he'll sit as an independent in the House of Commons. Vong tweeting, "Everyone is counting on those elected to devote themselves to the service of everyone they represent. That is what I intend to do." Do you think he fairly won the riding?
No, I don't. It did have Liberal in front of it when I voted. So yeah, I think that's deceiving.
Communications expert and former NDP strategist Brad Levine says for that very reason, the MP-elect should resign.
There should be a by-election, and if he does wish to serve, then he should run in that by-election and answer the questions that the constituents will have. But until then, he'll have a cloud over his head.
A cloud that could affect his time in Parliament.
The Liberals will shun him in Parliament. The other parties aren't going to pull him into their caucus. He won't be on any parliamentary committees. His opportunity to talk in Parliament will be very limited.
But Wiseman also adds,
But he's been duly elected and he hasn't been convicted of anything. So there aren't any grounds to throw someone out of Parliament.
Others agree, given that the 2019 charge against Vong was dropped by the Crown.
If it was dropped, then you would just side with that legal process.
But thousands have signed an online petition.
He should resign. That should be a resignation by himself for sure. There's no other way.
The former chair of Vong's campaign tweeting today, "You point blank lied to party officials, and there is absolutely no trust for you to regain." In Vong's tweet, he says allegations of sexual assault are a serious matter that he intends to address at a later date in a dedicated forum. Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
And we have the final election results in the Davenport riding tonight. Liberal Julie Derowitz has won by a razor-thin margin of just 165 votes. Davenport is the last Toronto riding to be called and confirming the Liberal sweep across the city. One person is dead after a shooting in Mississauga tonight. It happened in the area of Midway Boulevard and Columbus Road at around 8:15. Police say a vehicle was seen leaving the area after the shooting. The victim, a male, was pronounced dead on scene. Police have not provided a description of the vehicle or of the suspects. Meanwhile, a shooting in Brampton this afternoon left a man dead and a woman injured. Now, the shooting happened in the area of Airport Road and Countryside Drive just before 5 tonight. Paramedics pronounced the man dead and took the woman to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Less than 20 minutes after the shooting, a burning vehicle with no one inside was found near Grenoble Boulevard and Williams Parkway, just 7 kilometers away.
At this time, it is early on in the investigation. However, investigators do believe that this could possibly be related to the shooting.
Police believe 3 suspects fled the shooting scene in that vehicle. There are no descriptions of the suspects at this time. Officers are investigating both scenes. Anyone with information or surveillance video should contact police. The search continues for a missing couple in Markham. They were last seen on Saturday. York Regional Police say concern for their well-being is growing.
It's unusual behavior that there is no contact or communication. The family members have tried to locate them at areas that they would normally be or at their residence in Markham and have yet to be able to find or locate them.
Kwok Tran and Christy Wynn were last seen near Highway 7 East and Warden Avenue. Police say there are concerns that suspicious activity is involved. The York Homicide and Missing Persons Unit is now on the case. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. The man charged in the death of a Toronto police officer is out on bail tonight. Umar Zamir is charged with first-degree murder in the death of Constable Jeffrey Northrup in July. The 31-year-old was released on $350,000 bail. Now, the details surrounding the release are protected by a publication ban. However, we know Zamir must live under house arrest with his sister and what has been placed under an electronic monitoring supervision program. He also has to surrender his passport and travel documents to police, and he can't drive a car. Constable Northrup was killed on July 2nd after being struck by a vehicle in the underground parking garage at City Hall. After learning of Zamir's release, the Premier tweeted, "This is beyond comprehension. It's completely unacceptable that the person responsible for this heinous crime is now out on bail." Now, Zamir has not been convicted, so a short time later, that tweet was deleted and replaced with one reading, "It's completely unacceptable that the person charged for this heinous crime is now out on bail." Well, positive or negative, there was no shortage of reaction today to Ontario's new vaccine passport system. Some saying it offers them peace of mind, while some business owners say they're concerned about the impact on their bottom line. Our Chris Glover has more on what we're hearing on day one.
For the first time in a while, Vivian Poon is focusing on the bag instead of wondering if the person next to her is vaccinated.
You get that peace of mind knowing everyone else here is kind of in the same boat as you, vaccinated, just adding that added level of safety.
Starting today, like other non-essential businesses, in order to exchange jabs inside United Boxing Club, you must first show proof you're fully vaccinated.
As a business owner and even as a person, asking someone's health information, private health information, doesn't sit right with me.
Owner Jordan Thomas wishes there was a less invasive option, but surveyed his members and found a lot of support.
They were waiting for the vaccine passport policy to be in place for them to come back. So that's really what drove our decision.
No vaccine passport! But some have protested the idea, and this morning anti-vaccine graffiti was spotted at a vape shop on the Danforth. To avoid any destruction and violence against staff, Peterborough restaurant Apollo Grill is switching back to takeout and delivery only.
They were very nervous about what if I ask somebody and, there's a confrontation.
There were large tables.
For now, indoor dining scattered throughout St. Lawrence Market is gone, opting to act like a grocery store, not a restaurant, to avoid lineups checking up to 10,000 guests on some days.
It didn't make sense for us to keep the common area seating and have every single person who entered the building show their certificate, just for the limited number of people who might be sitting and eating.
But with around 80% of Torontonians fully vaccinated, St. Lawrence crepe vendor Chris Lee says it's unfair.
They just taken away all the seats, so nobody's able to eat, which affects my business.
Oh, put some pepper on there? Yeah, so some nice rolls.
Hugo Barraza doesn't generally eat inside at the market.
Unless it's wet like this, raining, where you want to be eating inside. But yeah, I don't think it's, I think it's a little bit smart in the end where you can just have people going in and out.
And I just click like this here, and then it shows up, so it's a little easier.
Colin DeGroot has his proof ready to show. While he's worried about lines and confusion everywhere, he says this needs to happen.
It's kind of what they got to do to make people get the vaccine.
The Canadian Federation of Independent Business surveyed its members and found that 45% were generally supportive of this idea, but still a full 40% said that they were opposed. And now that organization is calling on the government to introduce de-escalation training for businesses, as well as providing funding just in case there is any destruction related to these new certificates. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario lagged behind other provinces in bringing in a vaccine passport system, and Premier Ford says he isn't crazy about the measure, but it's necessary to avoid another shutdown.
There's no secret. You know, I was reluctant. I was reluctant because I just don't believe in government dictating to people how to live their lives, run their businesses, and saying that this is special circumstance. I want to, you know, move forward with this, but I don't want to do it a day longer than we have to.
As for how long the vaccine certificates will be in place, Ford says that will depend on advice from the chief medical officer. Meanwhile, Ford was asked where he's been these past few months. Today's press conference was his first in 3 weeks, and it's only the second time Ford has taken questions from the media since the end of July. Here's how Ford responded to that.
I've been all over the province every single day. I've been traveling from east, west, north, south, out speaking to the people, dealing with a pandemic.
Some other bits of news emerging from that news conference today. Ford says he is now willing to sign a deal with the Trudeau government for $10 a day childcare in Ontario, something he was reluctant to do before the election. Also, he said all PC party candidates in next year's provincial election campaign will be vaccinated against COVID-19. That's a different stance from his federal Conservative counterparts. Well, the rain just kept coming down today, and make sure you've got your umbrella packed because the showers are going to continue into tomorrow. Environment Canada is saying when all is said and done, we could see 50 to 60 millimeters of rain. Some areas could see up to 75 millimeters. The rain tonight leading to widespread power outages. Toronto Hydro is reporting thousands of outages in Rexdale and Scarborough. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, as you had warned us, a very wet and soggy one for the first day of fall.
Yeah, and such a slow mover, this system, too, and that's why the rainfall amount's so significant. So we're still into some of this heavier rain that we see through the overnight and into early tomorrow morning. So a rainfall warning, of course, still in place, and you can see it blanketing most of southern and eastern Ontario into northeastern Ontario, and taking a look at how it's going to be rolling forward. So we get that counterclockwise circulation, around an area of low pressure. Those heavier bands, so for the early morning commuters, this is still likely be affecting the city and parts to the west, but if you're getting out there more that 7 to 9 corridor, eastern sections of the GTA and beyond, pushing on from Port Hope towards Kingston, still some heavier rains and into northeastern Ontario. Elsewhere, we'll be seeing some cloud cover and just those bands of showers that continue to rotate around. Could see some breaks into the afternoon, but there's still going to be showery activity. We've still got to push the rest of this system on through. So that takes Thursday night into Friday morning before we get rid of this thing. Tonight, 13 for the low, and we're looking at tomorrow afternoon, 18. Keep in mind, even though I put a little sun there, there's likely going to be some wet weather carrying on through there. We'll take a look at how much more rain is going to fall when I come back, Hilda.
Thanks, Colette. The trial of a Toronto police officer accused of assaulting a black man on a TTC bus in 2019 has resumed. Today, Chase Richards told the court he felt traumatized after a plainclothes officer, Detective Christopher Hutchings, choked him for 30 seconds before arresting him. Now, Richards had previously testified he boarded the bus from the back, tapped his Presto card, then was called to speak with the bus driver. Eventually, 2 plainclothes officers came onto the bus and asked who was causing problems. The Crown is arguing Hutchings then used excessive force. He has pleaded not guilty to assault and obstruction of justice. The trial resumes tomorrow when a retired Toronto police deputy chief is set to take the stand. Well, there's a new addition to Canadian Red Cross's first aid and CPR training, opioid overdose response. This comes as opioid-related deaths have risen sharply during the pandemic. As our Talia Ricci reports, health experts and those who have lost loved ones to overdoses say this step is long overdue.
Brad was my older brother who died in 2015 of an overdose. He was 43. He left behind 3 children and several grandchildren.
Brad Chapman's death led to a coroner's inquest and a series of recommendations for Ontario, Toronto, and its police force.
This is an injectable kit.
One of them was to ensure first aid training included opioid overdose response.
And it's very easy to use.
His sister is relieved it's finally now happening.
I'm really pleased. I think it's long overdue, to be honest.
When too many of them bind in, that is what causes the opioid poisoning.
The training is funded by the federal government and educates people on what opioid poisoning looks like and how to respond.
put this up the nose, administer the medication.
Including administering naloxone. The Canadian Red Cross says it's coming at a crucial time.
The deaths were rising incredibly, and there's barriers to people accessing naloxone. And so that became a bit of the focus, is how can we reduce some stigma and normalize the idea of naloxone in everyday Canadians. So we know that communities of 50 to 100,000 have twice the rate of opioid deaths than their larger, urban centers.
According to figures by Public Health Ontario, 2,426 opioid-related deaths occurred in 2020, a 60% increase from the year before.
I knew you were calling me, so I got one of these kits. Right?
Dr. Hans Clark hopes to see the training yield results soon.
All of the things we've told people over the years in terms of opioid use or individuals who use opioids went completely out the window with COVID. Instead of using together, having a community, being around people as you use this, we went to stay isolated, stay away from people. And you can imagine that isolation can grow pretty deep, and you have people in scenarios where they actually can't, get that life-saving treatment that they need.
Chapman can't help but wonder whether her brother would still be around if this training was implemented earlier.
If this training was included, then I think the response might have been quite different.
She hopes the 1.5 million people the Red Cross plan to educate over the next 3 years results in lives being saved. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. The Toronto Maple Leafs officially opened training camp today. The team hoping to rebound this season after that disappointing early exit from the playoffs back in May. They also have some work to do when it comes to winning back many of their fans. Greg Ross has more.
After last year, I kind of just gave up on them.
Jerry Scarangella says he's a lifelong Leaf fan, or at least he was, until this happened.
And the Montreal Canadiens are headed to Winnipeg for the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Watching yet another first-round playoff exit by the Leafs last season was the final straw. It was made even worse by the fact the Leafs blew a 3-1 lead in that series against Montreal.
I had a Leaf jersey in my room. I threw it over my balcony. Done. And then I had a poster hanging up there too, or a picture, and took that down too.
He's not the only Leaf fan to jump off the bandwagon recently.
It's just too much disappointment over the years.
Honestly, it is tough, because they really have to pick it up.
Leafs coach Sheldon Keefe agrees.
There's no forgetting, and there's learning and moving forward.
Players say they're using last year's disappointment as motivation to be better.
What was encouraging is it hurt. Like, guys were really sour about it, and then we should be. We failed. I think for us, it's obviously just a motivating factor, an opportunity to try to learn and reflect.
Leafs captain John Tavares says he expects to be ready for the start of the season after recovering over the summer from this.
Buzzing ahead for Tavares, knocked down by Sherratt, and Tavares is hurt.
Tavares left the ice on a stretcher after taking a knee to the head from the Canadiens' Corey Perry.
Obviously, I don't have any memory of the incident. I've been treating it like any offseason that I've had in the past, and everything's been great.
William Nylander says he'll also be ready for the start of the season, but has something he needs to take care of first.
Obviously, you can see I have a mask on. I'm not fully vaccinated yet, so I had a couple medical things I had to take care of, and I'll be fully vaccinated by the beginning of the season.
The Leafs will play their first preseason game here at Scotiabank Arena on Saturday night against the Montreal Canadiens, which is the very same team they'll face in their first regular season game on October 13th. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, you're looking at a live shot of the city skyline, and the heavy rain continues and quite foggy as well. But the rain will let up a little bit as we head into the overnight. Currently a cool 13 degrees in downtown Toronto. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast, and a wet one out there tonight, Colette, and that rain will be sticking around into tomorrow.
Yeah, really the heaviest stuff kind of coming through the overnight hours into the early morning hours tomorrow, and then it does taper down to showers. Our rainfall warning stays with us. The amounts have varied, but around 50 millimeters with additional rain to come. And certainly there are areas to the north and northeast of the GTA where those totals will end up closer to that 100 millimeters. There's that pocket of some of the heavier bands when we get into these more intense yellows that you're seeing on the color contouring there. And that pushes by tomorrow morning into eastern Ontario, so you're getting into the heavier rain there. We start to see some breaks in that stuff. Still some showers, maybe a few breaks in the cloud deck, especially into the afternoon, but look at all those showers still stretching into southwestern Ontario, and watch that counterclockwise circulation around the area of low pressure, and with that there'll still be some bands that are going to rotate back in through the Niagara region back towards the GTA, and that's as we go Thursday night into Friday morning. Then we get some breaks again, and still we've got another bit that has to pass through. Cloud cover comes back again, but we see this lift out. Once it does, Friday later in the day, we really do get into some clearing. That next system that's going to come through, that's for Friday night into Saturday morning. That one won't be nearly as intense as this one. So just looking through, this is additional to come towards tonight into Friday morning. So that's additional on top of what we have seen. Overnight tonight, 12 degrees for the low into southwestern Ontario, 15 to 16 for your highs, your daytime highs. Yeah, fall started today. Doesn't it feel like it when you see temperatures like this? Through the overnight hours, not a big change. Then tomorrow, St. Catharines, the more breaks that you see in the cloud cover, the greater chance you'll see that temperature coming up a bit further. Winds are really going to be a story into southwestern Ontario, but still breezy as well around the Golden Horseshoe. So 18 the high tomorrow. Then for Friday, just keep in mind some showers really early, then some breaks, and then some cloud cover to come back in, and then we'll break out of this. 19 for the high. Saturday, most of this activity early in the day, and then the second half of the day looking a little bit better, and that should help us out into the second half of the weekend too, Kelda.
Okay, good. Thanks so much, Colette. Today is McHappy Day at McDonald's in Toronto. It's a fundraising day for Ronald McDonald House Charities, which gives families a place to stay when a child is sick and needs to travel for treatment. Mayor John Tory got in on the action.
So people can come out to McDonald's and enjoy the food they enjoy all the time, but know that some of that money is going to go today to support these wonderful charities. And there are these rooms right across Ontario and right across Canada, and there's the big Ronald McDonald House downtown. And we're very proud of that, and we're hopeful one day there's going to be an even bigger one, because that's what they're trying to get permission to do.
A portion of the proceeds from McDonald's food and drinks sold today will go to Ronald McDonald House programs. Ronald McDonald House celebrated 4 decades in Toronto this year. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night, everyone.